Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in AP English, and we turn now in our study of Dante's Inferno to Canto 2122. Now, unusual in that up to this point we have treated every canto singularly and then moved on to the next one. Canto 2122, we're doing several important things when we're Dante the poet. Most importantly, we are telling a single kind of short story through those two cantos, so we'll be treating them together. We are in Circle 8, bolgia number 5. These are the berators or the grafters, basically corrupt politicians. But really what's significant here has less to do with the sin and the sinners and has far more to do with Dante the poet and we would say with the demons. Okay, so we've got Dante doing all kinds of interesting stuff here with obviously Virgil along. You'll remember in the Iliad when we did that text together, we talked about the warrior's Aristeia. That's that preparation for the battle, that's the battle itself and doing all kinds of important things. In these two cantos, we kind of have a sense of an Aristeia for Dante, more particularly about Dante the poet referencing that there are things he's seen that come close to battle scenes, and then we're going to have demons that start out really scary and ferocious, but by the end come out as looking really silly. The idea, by the way, of demons with pitchforks and wings and doing nasties in hell is all a contrivance of something extra-biblical. We don't have those kinds of pictures in the Bible as much as we have them in medieval theology. And then, of course, by Dante, we're going to have a full graphic picture of what these demons look like. Now, if you haven't been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, definitely hit the AP folder down that left-hand side. My assumption is that you've worked with all of our lectures from the Iliad up through St. Augustine's Confessions. And as well, we have been working now with all of our cantos up and including now 20. Let's do a real quick summary. In Canto 1, we find out we're on the 7th of April, which is technically Thursday, moving into Friday, Good Friday of 1300, Dante 35 years old. Virgil will show up to guide him because Dante can't get up the mountain of God because 3 animals stand in his way. Canto 2, after the invocation of the Muse, Virgil tells Dante that Beatrice is the one who sent him. In Canto 3, we enter the gates of hell, abandon hope, all ye who enter here, and the uncommitted. Canto 4, limbo, the circle of the unbaptized pagans, including Virgil and Homer and Aristotle. Cantos 5, 6, and 7 are the sins of the incontinent, the weak-willed. Circle 2 in Canto 5, the jacked lovers and Francesca. Circle 3 in Canto 6, these are the gluttons and Chaco. Circle 4 and 5 in Canto 7, these are the prodigals and avaricious. In Circle 4 and Circle 5, Styx and the wrathful and the sullen. And then in Canto 8, we go across the Styx with Pelagius and Felipe Argente. Then in Canto 9, the gates of Dis are open. In Canto 10, the conversation with Farinata Cavalcante. In Canto 11, we have that important moment when Dante gives a cartography of hell, the map of the rest of hell. In Canto 12, we begin with the violent, okay? And then we'll move in Canto 12, Circle 7, Round 1, we'll have the violent against neighbors and Phalation, the river of blood. In Canto 13, we have Circle 7, Round 2, the violent against self, those are the suicides and the talking trees. In Canto 14, we have Circle 7, Ring 3, the violent against God, the blasphemers. In Canto 15, Circle 7, Ring 3, the violent against nature, these are the sodomites, which continues in Canto 16, with 3 of those Florentines having conversations with Dante. Again, the ironies we pointed out were that Dante treats this sin probably as gently as he does any sin in all of Inferno. In Canto 17, finally, Circle 7, the third ring, violence against art. These are the users, and they are on Gerian's back to ride down into, in Canto 18, Circle 8. This is the Malabranche. These are the simple frauds, and then we begin to divide up into these bolgies, or these pockets, or these pouches. In bolgia 1 of Canto 18, we have the panderers and seducers, and in bolgia 2, we have the flatterers who eat their own fecal matter. In Canto 19, Circle 8, bolgia 3, we have the simoniacs, and of course that reference to Pope Nicholas III and Boniface VIII. Dante, the reformer, goes to war against the church, if you will. In Canto 20, we have Circle 8, bolgia number 4. These are the fortune tellers. Tiresias himself is there, and of course their head is turned around backwards and tears run down their back to water the cleft of the buttocks. Now in Inferno 21:22, we then will turn to the berators. Again, the hope is that you're using me after you've done your own reading. Our learning theory and our annotative process answers the 3 guiding questions that connect new to old. What does the text say? What does the text mean? And how can I relate to it? Again, at 2B, we're working with symbolism and irony and Dante as poet, politician, and philosopher. A brief summary of Canto 21-22. Well, we go to this pool of pitch where there's demons and their hooks. And we are going to have an interesting journey with these demons who are ferocious, but at the same time salute by sticking out their tongues to each other and farting. Yes, we are going to get fart jokes in Canto 21 right at the end. And then finally we'll have a brief exchange with someone from Navarre. The Navarrese are the ones who are specifically focused upon here. And in the end we have this interesting fight between the demons themselves. Let's just now enjoy the language. And I say enjoy because this is Dante really at some of his poetic finest. Canto 21. And so we went from bridge to bridge and spoke of things which my commedia does not mean to sing. In other words, there's things I'm not including that I could include in this comedy. By the way, many have argued 21-22 is the comedy section of the commedia. Comedy in strange ways, as we'll get to. We reached the summit, stopped to look at the next fissure, number 5, of bolgia, and the vain lamenting that was next. And what I beheld was an astounding darkness, because there's pitch. And then he gives this interesting word picture from the arsenal, the shipyard at Venetia. And again, all of the references to maritime and to military exploits leads us to call this maybe the Aristeia of Dante, right? And what I beheld was an astounding darkness. As is done in winter, when the sticky pitch is boiled in the Venetian arsenal to caulk their unsound vessels while no ship can be sailed, and so instead one uses the time to make his ship anew, another one repairs much voyaged ribs, and some with hammers strike the prow, and some the stern. And this one makes oars while that one might twist rope, another patch the jib and mainsail. So, in other words, that long epic simile, which again takes us back to the Iliad and the Odyssey and the Aeneid, no question. So, not by any fires, but some art of heaven. A heavy pitch was boiling there below, which overglued the banks on every side. I saw that much, but could see nothing in it, but the flood of bubbles and boiling rays, and the whole mass swelling and settling. One more time we will have sinners who are down below, who are they're speaking and therefore causing the bubbling. While I stared down my guide crying, "Watch out! Watch out!" pulled me across. Note the creation of the tension in this. Almost reads like a short story or a little short series in the middle of the journey. Pulled me across toward him from where I stood. I turned my head like someone eager to find out what it is he must avoid, who, finding himself dismayed by sudden fear while he is turning back, does not delay his flight. What I beheld hurrying from behind us up the rock was a black demon. Ah, in his looks a brute. How fierce he seemed in action, and the word seemed here is going to play into this, because while they're fierce and they're scary, they're also comic and silly. We'll see this. How fierce he seemed in action, running the track with his wings held outspread and light of foot. Over one high sharp shoulder he had thrown a sinner, carrying both haunches' weight on the one side, with one hand holding on to both the ankles. Reaching our bridge, now he will speak. Oh, Malabranche. Malabranche, by the way, evil claws, and now this is what the demons will be called, the Malabranche, the ones with the claws, the hooks, if you will. Here is another one of Santa Zita's elders, the patron saint of the city of Lucca, of Navarre. While I go back to bring more from his homeland, Navarre, thrust him below. His city gives us an abundant stock. Every citizen there, except Bonturo, practices barbarity, and given cash, they can contrive a yes from any no. By the way, saying that everyone in the city except for Bonturo is involved in barbarity is, of course, satire at its best, because Bonturo was well known to be the worst of all of these corrupt politicians. So notice, we're going to have satire as well in 21-22 that will be significant. He hurled the sinner down, turned and to rush back down the rocky crag. And now notice all of the animal references in Inferno. I mean, you could do something fascinating by going through Inferno and just paying attention every time an animal gets mentioned. Here it's another dog. And no mastiff was ever more impatient to shake the leash and run his fastest after a fleeing thief. The sinner sank below, only to rise rump up, so his butt sticking out of the mud. We're going to see more about butts, and as I said, we're going to have fart jokes here in a bit. But demons under the bridge's shelf cried, "Here's no place to show your sacred face." This is a reference, the sacred face here, of Nicodemus's crucifix at the Cathedral of Lucca. This would be a reference Dante's readers would know well. You're not out in the Circo for a swim. The Circo is the river near Lucca. You're not out in the Circo for a swim. If you don't want to feel our hooks like this, then stay beneath the pitch. They struck at him with over 100 hooks. So you can see this is really, obviously kind of really scary, right? And said, "You'll need to dance in secret here. Go, so grab what scam you're able to in darkness." Notice the secret dance of the grafters, the corruptors. Then they did just as cooks. And now another interesting simile. This one, not a military one, but cooks who push scullions down under the water as they're boiling. As cooks have their scullions do to steep the meat well into the cauldron with a prod from their forks, keeping it from floating up. My good guide said, "So it will not seem that you are here. Find some jagged outcrop and crouch behind it to give yourself a screen." Go hide, in other words. "No matter what offenses they offer me, do not be frightened. I know how things are done here. Once before, I was in such a fray." This may be referring to Canto 19 through 29 lines. "And then he passed beyond the bridge's head, and coming to the sixth bank, suddenly he needed to keep a steady front. They bayed and rushed at him with all the courage and uproar of dogs that charge some wretched vagabond who suddenly is forced to flee. They tore from under the bridge and raised their forks at him, but he cried, 'Not so savage.'" An interesting line, because by the end of Canto 23, 22, we will see them as not so savage. "Before you dare to touch me with your forks, choose one to come forward to hear me out and then decide whether to hook me." They all cried out, "One name. Let Malakota go." Malakota means bad tail, okay. "Let Malakota go." So the others stood, while one strode forward to him, sneering, "What good will it do him?" So my master said, "Do you, O Malakota, think I could get through all of your defenses safely as this except by heaven's will and happy fate? Now let us pass, for heaven also decrees that I should show another this savage road." In other words, do you really think that I got here all by myself? Obviously, I'm here on a special mission from heaven. Notice God never mentioned in the Inferno, right? And we're told immediately the demon's pride fell. It's funny, right? Given the irony of what happens. Where do we get demons from? The falling angels, right? And all of the pride that took them down. The demon's pride fell so much, he let loose his hook, which fell down at his feet. Interesting symbolism, right? And said, "Now no one strike him." To me, my leader called. And it's almost as if Virgil is making fun a little bit of Dante, like, "Aha, over there hiding behind the rock. Now you may come back safely to my side, you who crouch squatting behind the splintered shield of stone upon the bridge." Now, whether Virgil is actually making fun of Dante or not, who's to say, right? At this I stirred and quickly joined him, and the devils milled towards us, pressing forward so that I feared they might not keep the pact. In other words, they all start coming up around Dante. And then we get this interesting line, "So I once saw the soldiers frightened," and this takes us back to August of 1289, when Dante himself was maybe involved in an exchange of prisoners. "So I once saw the soldiers frightened when they removed their guard out of Campania by treaty, as they withdrew, passing among so many enemies. I kept as close by my guide as I could, and all the while I did not take my eyes away from their expressions, which were not good." In other words, they have scary looks. "They lowered their hooks, but I heard one give voice." Now we get this interesting aside conversation happening between the demons at line 100. "Should I just touch him on the rump?" Again, back to this stuff about body parts, especially the rear end. Replied the others, "Yes, go on and give him a cut." But the demon who was talking with my guide turned around instantly on hearing that, saying, "Hold, hold, scarmology." This scarmology is, notice the word scar is in fact right in the name. Right? "To us," he said, "you can't go further by this route, because along this ridge the sixth arch lies all shattered at the bottom. The bridge is broken. But if you still wish to go forward, a ridge not far from this does have a place where you can cross at will." By the way, he lies and he says there is a bridge that is in fact fixed. We're going to discover all the bridges of the sixth pouch are in fact broken. And then he says something interesting. "If you still wish to go forward, a ridge not far from this does have a place where you can cross at will. It was yesterday, 5 hours later than now, that the 1266th year fell, since the road here was ruined." Now, let's do some quick understanding of this for your notes. We're talking, of course, about the earthquake of Christ's death that we heard about in Cantos 5 and also 8. Let's do some quick mathematics and some understanding of dates. Now we're specific. We began Dante's Inferno on Thursday, April 7th, Lost in the Dark Wood. In Friday, the next day, April the 8th, Good Friday, right, he entered hell that very evening. In Canto 8, lines 87 and 88, we discover that it's midnight in the 4th circle, and then at 4 a.m., the 7th circle, Canto 9, 109 to 111, it's 4 a.m. And then finally, at 7 a.m., we have Holy Saturday. This is 9 April, 1300. And Christ died at noon on this day, 1266 days ago, plus 1 day ago. So this is where we get our mathematics. Notice Dante has been playing this game with us all the way through Inferno. Now we get very, very specific. He says, I'm sending a crew out of my company in that direction to see if sinners are taking the air. Note the irony of that one. And you're going to get this crew of 10 demons. And then he says, you go with them, for they'll not harm you in any fashion. And then he goes through calling out the names of all of the demons quickly. First, he says, Alecchino, and Calcaprino he calls next. And you, Cagnazzo, he says, to be the captain of all 10. Barbaricia, and in the squad take Labicoco and Dragonisio too, and Carito with his tusky head. He's got like a boar. It's got tusks. Think about that one in Golding's Lord of Flies when we pick up that novel later. And also Gravicini. Notice Graf is actually in his name, and Farfalillo, and notice the adjective crazy Rubicante. Search all around the pools of boiling tar, and see these two get safely over to where the dens are spanned by the next ridge, whose ark is undestroyed. Haha, right? Because, of course, all the bridges have been destroyed. Oh me, this is Dante the Pilgrim, none too pleased with this idea. Oh me, oh master, what do I see? I groan. We need no escort if you know the road. As for me, I want none. If you are cautious, as is your custom, then how can you avoid seeing them grind their teeth and with ferocious brows threaten to do us harm? In other words, these guys are ferocious, they're scary. And he returned, I tell you, have no fear. It is the wretches who boil here that they menace. So let them grind as fiercely as they like and scowl their worst. And then the company of devils turned, wheeling along the left-hand bank. But first, each signaled their leader with the same grimace. And this is going to take us back to Canto 17, line 66. You'll maybe remember that Giovanni Biomonte, the usurer, all he did for Dante is stick out his tongue. But first, each signaled their leader with the same grimace, baring their teeth through which the tongue was pressed, and the leader made a trumpet of his ass. In other words, we end with a fart joke as they give their signal of sticking out their tongue. This is pure comedy, of course. Notice Dante the poet, again, at his brilliant here. He is making these demons at the same time ferocious and yet silly. Canto 22, again, it all bleeds together rather nicely. I have seen, back to the Aristeia of Dante again, Canto 21, line 92, we heard the same thing. I have seen horsemen moving camp before, and when they muster, and when an assault begins, and beating a retreat when they retire. I have seen coursers too, and then he says it, oh, Artanines, this is our 1289 is our date, over your lands and raiders setting out, and openings of jousts and tourneys. I have seen warriors fighting, in other words, with signs by bell and trumpet and drum, and signals yet on castles by native and foreign singularity. And I have, but he says, I've seen lots and lots of warriors, but I have never seen so strange a flagellant sent foot on horsemen or horsemen forth, nor ship at sea guided by land or star. I've never seen warriors like this, never seen soldiers like this. This is something I had never seen. By the way, let's just point out the way Dante the poet is able to say throughout his Inferno to this point, I have seen X. You, reader, have to see it through my words. Right? It's quite fascinating. We journeyed now with the 10 demons. Oh, savage company. But as the saying has it, one must go with boozers in the tavern and saints in church. It's kind of a funny, ironic saying. By the way, it does beg the question, what about 1 Corinthians 15:33 that Dante, of course, would know well? Evil companionships corrupt good morals and all of that. And 10 upon the pitch. By the way, this is that kind of moment in the text when Dante plays games like, well, I guess you got to follow the boozers into the tavern and saints into the church. This is a moment when, obviously, the readers of this poem know 1 Corinthians 15:33, right? And he continues, he says, intent upon the pitch, I tried to know all that I could of the nature of this pouch and those who burn in it, right? I mean, hello, we are in hell because there are these sinners who are being punished, and we did an entire canto and virtually nothing is there other than the one had his rump up. And then we get an interesting simile again. In the medieval period, sailors often thought that dolphins coming out of the water proved that there was about to be bad weather, so that's the word picture here. Like dolphins, who warned sailors to save their vessels when they arc their backs above the water, so we could discern from time to time a sinner show his back to alleviate his pain, and then return to hiding quicker than a lightning stroke. In other words, they come up, then back down they go. And as at water's edge or in a ditch, frogs lie. This is the second time we've had an interesting frog simile. Remember, the early one was about if a snake comes along, the frog goes away. Here, as frogs lie, concealing their feet in all their bulk with snouts above the surface. At the approach of Barbaria, sinners who lay just so, concealing themselves on every side, would twitch and pull back under the boiling. I saw, and now my heart still shudders as I tell it, one stay. Just as it happens that while one jumps below, another frog might linger where they lay. But, and we're told now, Graffassini, who was the nearest, hooked him by his pitch-thick hair. So it looked to me as if he had caught an otter. Now, you'll remember in our study of the Iliad that in some of those more grotesque battle scenes, we had every once in a while this kind of thing where somebody in a chariot would stick somebody with a pike and pick him up. And you'll remember that the word picture was almost like a fish that had been caught on a line. We get a similar kind of reference. Dante, obviously, in full command. He knows exactly what he's doing. By the way, we had the same game being played in Virgil's Aeneid, didn't we? Now, he picks him up by the pitch-thick hair. So it looked to me as if he had caught an otter. I could connect each one of them with his name. By the way, this is a parenthetical side. We're talking about the demons now. I could connect each one with his name, for I had noted carefully who they were when they were picked. And